So we've already learned how to solve an equation, quadratic equation, by completing the square. And so after people did this a lot of times, they started to recognize that there's a pattern each time that you go to complete the square. And so they wanted to come up with a formula so they wouldn't have to keep on doing that pattern. So what they did is they started off with a regular standard quadratic equation, right, with a, b, and c solved on one side, and then the other side is equal to 0. And what they did from there is they completed the square. So step 1, they got rid of this c term. So you get ax squared plus bx equals negative c. Then from there, they wanted to complete the square, but before they do that, they have to get rid of this a. So they divided both sides by a. So then you have x squared plus b over a x equals negative c over a. And so when they went to go do completing the square on the left side, okay, let's see what that would look like visually. Okay, in the top left corner, we've got the x squared. And to make a perfect square, we're going to have to split this evenly. So this would be 1/2 of b over a, or b over 2a x. Same thing over here, b over 2a x. And then to complete that square, on the outside, we'd have x plus b over 2a, x plus b over 2a. And then that missing piece that they need to complete this square and make it a perfect square would be b over 2a times b over 2a, which is b squared over 4a squared. So that's the number that we need to add on both sides. B squared over 4a squared, b squared over 4a squared, in order to make this thing a perfect square. So this crazy looking thing is going to be the x plus b over 2a squared. That's your perfect square. These can be combined if you get a common denominator. So like on this side, if you want to add these together, 4a squared, this would also need to be multiplied by a 4 and an a in order to make it 4a squared. So what you got here is b squared minus 4ac all over 4a squared. That's your common denominator. Okay. Then from there, we want to solve it basically by using the square root method. So we would square root both sides. So this would be x plus b over 2a. And on the right side, when you square root this, it square roots the top and the bottom. So this would be plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. And on the bottom, when you square root 4a squared, you square root the 4, you got 2. Square a squared, you got a. Okay, we're almost at the formula. To solve for the x, we would subtract b over 2a on both sides. Okay, so what we have left over is x equals negative b over 2a plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. And then these will combine together. So your formula is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So basically, in order to solve any quadratic equation that's in standard form, you could complete the square, but they always kind of repeat the same moves. So they came up with this formula by just choosing variables as a, b, and c and figuring out what the answer would be. So this is the quadratic formula. It comes from completing the square.